Judge, if I may.
Commissioner?
Really?
Almost everyone.
Something that's not being mentioned here is it was actually the residents of the housing authority that alerted me to the fact that of the sudden resignation of the executive director. This court was not notified by the board of directors that the previous executive director, Mike Terrazas, had suddenly resigned. My office received calls from the residents themselves who lived there and said, hey, this guy resigned and all of a sudden they're shredding documents. I had to pay a surprise visit to the Fabens housing complex, and it was only by the agenda that was posted on there that I discovered that now there's an interim executive director, that Mr. Terrazas' administrative assistant is now the executive director. Nobody notified the court of that fact. There was also more than 80 documents that were shredded by the previous executive director before it is that he resigned. That's something else that's being forgotten. That's why it is I attended that surprise meeting. In that meeting, where lots of people had many things to say about myself and the county, there was not a single resident in that meeting, and you were there. When I asked that question, how many people actually reside in these housing units? Not a single individual raised their hand.
One.
The one that serves on the board.
Oh, I'm not sure.
That's the only individual that was there. But this was a meeting where, the board members had called their friends and relatives to come and support them. But the fact remains it is that the previous executive director resigned and shredded 80 boxes of documents before it is he left. Now there's an interim executive director. Following that meeting, Judge Escobar and I made the effort to then meet directly with each and every single resident. And I have the sign-in sheets here. Out of the 80 units, more than 50% of them participated in our public meetings. More than 50%. And of course, at that time now, the board and the executive director didn't show up. But this is just a matter of, you're right, a lot of misinformation was spread, because when we had the opportunity to finally meet with the residents themselves, they told us that some would be removed from their homes. It would result in them and then getting kicked out. They would have to pay their bills to the housing authority in the city of El Paso and drive all the way out there. It would mean less options available to them and the services it is that are provided. It would mean that they would have subpar maintenance. These are the things it is that we heard directly from the residents. But the issue remains it is that this court was never notified about the resignation of the previous executive director, and that's still something it is that's being looked into. Now, to go to the question of, why are we picking on this housing authority there's only an 80-unit complex for the last 2 to 3 decades. 80 units
82.
For a precinct that is one of the poorest, not only in this county, but in the country. 80-unit housing complex. The people of San Eli, the people of Clint, the people of Montana Vista, they don't have the same opportunities that these residents in Fabens have of having a housing complex. And that seems very unjust and unfair to me. Given all the need in our precinct, the people of all Precinct 3 who live outside the city limits should have the opportunity to access affordable, safe housing. And they currently don't have that because the only housing unit that has existed in the past 3 decades has been in Fabens. So when we talk about all this, watching out for the residents and the poor, I am watching out for the poor because I care about all the residents in the precinct. And I think it's simply unjust it is that the residents in Fabens have benefited from this. Mr. Chichon has gone to great length to ensure it is that we're going to keep the residents there, we're going to provide a higher level of service to them, and that we're going to retain the staff. And above all that, this is finally going to give the people of other parts of the precinct the opportunity to access safe and affordable quality housing for the first time. So when we talk about this, I hope it is that you're not just thinking about the residents it is who are there in Fabens, because we've already made great commitments to those residents and to the employees. But this is also about the people of San Elizario, the people of Clint, the people of Montana Vista, the people of Socorro, who are without affordable housing options. And hopefully through this legislation, we'll be able to provide that to them.